Welcome, virtual world community. I'm here to just share a few insights on life, music, time, whether you're swinging or not. Uh, Maybe a little bit of music politics, maybe a little bit of the go along, get along gang in musical perspective. So we out here. That's what we are out here in the universe, out here in the world, and trying to make it a better place. So on Wednesdays, for those of you who have turned in or tuned in, we've been doing this live stream, getting with the younger community. Some of the musicians that are on the scene here, they're either finished 4-year degree programs at the university. Some of them are still in the university. Some of them are out there in the world doing their thing. So we just provide them real life perspectives. That's what we're here trying to do. Mentorship or professional development, however you like to call that. So that's what we're here doing. And I just want to point out that those that are serious, they show up. And those that are not serious, they don't show up. And those that are serious, really serious, they show up on time. And they're about improving or getting knowledge and information. And you got to go to the elders to get that knowledge and that information. So if you're not with the elders, who are you with? The go along, get along gang that have cut off the elders at the knees, those with the knowledge. I'm talking about people like Benny Golson, Johnny O'Neill. Like those are our super senior legendary type people. Buster Williams, Al Foster, Roy Haynes. But they're in a whole nother category. But now we got the elders that are in the generations of, that are like in their 60s now, late 50s, 60s, Kenny Washington, Vincent Herring, Craig Handy, Don Braden, cats that are out there. I mean, there's many, many others. I'm just shouting them out because I know they're about it and they out here. So for those who are not seeking those kind of people out, or musicians and artists of that level of vintage and that level of experience, you're doing yourself a disservice. And if you're just on the hype machine and you just on whoever's popular or hot, whoever got they bot Instagram followers up, they're relevant. It's like if you can't play a blues, you're not relevant. And a lot of these people out here that call themselves artists cannot play a blues, or they play at a blues, not really playing the blues of what that means and the feeling of that. So I'm just here to illuminate some things that aren't of the popular narrative in the musical scene. So if it vibes with you, great. But if it doesn't, that's great too. I'm just speaking it from a real world perspective, from my life experience. And that's, you could call it an opinion, but it's not really an opinion. If you lived it, is what it is. So that's all. Because I guess talking is more valuable than playing nowadays. I don't need to play. Man, I played close to 10,000 concerts in my life. And whoever knows how many hundreds of thousands of hours of practice and rehearsals. So I think I know a little bit about that. Just a little bit. I'm just saying. So, yeah.
Shout out the YouTube. Send them to YouTube for the live stream.
Oh yeah, and if you on Instagram and you checking this on Instagram, go to my YouTube channel, Ali Jackson, and you can get the feed a little bit better. We can connect more intimately, like right there in your living room, right there in your pocket. You know what I'm saying? right there in your face. Okay.
And also we have some shows going on there.
Yeah, and if you haven't checked it out, we've been working on this series called See You at the Gig. And basically, it just illuminates some things that those that are informed already know. But for those who are not, you should definitely check it out. Things about the music, things about how mainstream media presents music, what is music, what is quality music, what is taste, what is flavor, what is good music, and the other kind. So we talk about those things on See You at the Gig. And you can also look out for Bout It. So Bout It is a short format video series that highlights the legends, the elders, and those who have been doing it a long time that pretty much go unrecognized, like they're ghosts. Like no one knows who they are. However, they have extensive careers and an extensive archive of amazing art. So we illuminate these brothers and sisters out here. So, oh yeah, and we do have a campaign going right now to help fund Bout It, because all of the featured artists on Bout It, after they vote on who they think is Bout It, we want to give them an award, a prize, a cash prize and an award, a seriousness award. We call them the Serious Awards for those who are not BSing. So you can check that out. It's a GoFundMe. Contribute what you can. And for those people that you know who have the resources to contribute more handsomely, have those people do that. And all of that money will go directly to those artists that are about it, not to us. We just trying to educate, edify, uplift. You dig?
What else? The album reviews.
Oh yeah. We're also working on another program that's called On the Record, where I have reactions or musical related reactions to projects that people release. It could be like new projects, old projects, and I'm talking about albums, records, recordings, projects. And I talk about them in a musical context. Nothing personal, just music. So
the first one was?
Oh yeah, the first project we reviewed was by Ulysses Owens, entitled, what was
Soul
it?
Conversations.
Hey, Soul Conversations, Ulysses Owens, who I know very well, and I love him. Excellent drummer, really good-spirited brother, and support him when you're out here. If you hear his name or you see him, check him out. And we got more coming. So
Check the links in the comments for the funding, crowdfunding. The link put in the comments.
yes, and you can check the links in the comments for further information if you're interested.
And also your bio.
And you can also check the link in the bio for more information at any time, at your leisure.
Do you have any questions?
And if you have any questions for me, please send them. I'd be more than happy to try and answer them, or maybe I might have a question for you.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, I have a question for anyone that's out there. What is it that makes you want to go hear live music? Just curious. And do you even care anymore? Does anyone care to hear live music? And maybe what is that experience? How do you feel after you've heard live music? I hope not depressed.
How about you talk about what we usually do here more exactly on Wednesday?
Okay. So on Wednesdays, I guess we titled it "See You at the Crib," and it's a mentorship program. So what we do is, those interested in learning and improving their musicianship right out of university or in school, high school, it's open to all ages. And, just last week we had the great Dr. Professor Leonard King grace us with his presence. He's one of our elders. He's over 70. And he brought such zest and insight just on the spirituality of the music and what the music can bring to you. So he's one of my mentors. I met this man when I was 5, 6 years old. He's still doing it. And those are people like that carry that essence of what musicianship is and what artistry is and what performance is. Those people are extremely important. So I'm always about uplifting them and always having a platform for them to share that information and to share that feeling. So normally all of the youngins here, they're under 30 and they're trying to find their way and find their path. And what we try to do is provide some perspective. And what I do is just try to make it, give them the information that they need to be in a professional environment, like playing a real gig with somebody of a higher standard. And that's primarily what we try to do, is provide that experience and that what that looks like, put it through that lens,
But what is happening today? Like why is today different?
Today is different because people, for whatever reason, are in their feelings. Or there's just a lack of communication. We have all this technology nowadays. You got social media, you got email, you got text messages. You actually could call somebody and no one communicates. So I sent out an email to the small group of musicians that I have as guests here at our studio, and no one responded. So the people on my team, they reach out, they're very forthright, they're very dedicated, and no one responded about their attending today. Yay or nay, either way. Like they could say, hey, I don't know how long that takes you to say, I'm not coming in any format. You could say it, you could text it, you could write it in an email. That's it. That's all I requested of our small group of people.
Young, interested in the music.
Yeah, those young, interested in learning how to play this ancestral music, this art form. So that's why today I'm just rapping. So I'm gonna illuminate some things about just what I see our young people, how they could improve. And it's from a lens of just having more years and experience on the planet and actually being in that lane or being young and what I did to improve myself as a young person. So that's where we are right now.
So most of the young musicians that come on Wednesday nights have recently graduated from an institution studying music.
Hey, can they hear you?
Yes, they do.
And they can hear you too when you're talking and telling me what to say?
But we have to speak louder.
So what are you not seeing in these young musicians that is, in your view, required to grow in this music?
First off, a respect for, just some self-respect. One, being on time, communication, like basic fundamental things of being an adult or a responsible human. So I don't see that. Secondly, I don't see younger musicians being receptive to like old school information. Like, you know, I'm a huge proponent of simplicity in basics and fundamentals. So because that's not the flashy thing, people just kind of throw it out of the window. It's like, oh, I want to learn flurries, or I want to learn, you know, nonsense. You know, that's kind of what they, I don't know. They're not engaged in learning the fundamental things that are going to help them to solidify their foundation to get to a real high level, and whatever that is.
So are the schools not teaching fundamentals and also not shutting down the idea of nonsense?
I think the school's interest is tuition. I think the school's interest I mean, they're not on the hook whether you learn or you don't learn. And also the bar is lower when you don't have a standard out here in the professional landscape where you actually have to learn all this stuff. I was just talking to my cousin, and he was just saying all the music is digital now. So if you go to school, like most music and pop music, it's all digital. It's either sampled or it's in a digital domain. So no one has to actually learn how to play an instrument or learn how to play with other people. Like, that's the music. Mm-hmm. And then the cats that are popular inside of the quote unquote, I don't even say that word, the jazz world, I'm like, they playing on vamps. They play on vamps with some hip hop drums and it's a vamp, and they improvise over that, over something that's, you know, a tonal center, and that's what it is. So if that's the requirement of artistry, then I was like, well, the bar is very low.
So what you're saying is there's a lack of fundamentals in the actual music, not necessarily technique, per se.
Right. There are people that are technical. So there's a multitude of things. So the bar is low for how can I say, what is actually played in popular. It's moved in more of a popular genre or context where it's like instrumental hip hop. Okay, that's one thing. That's more popular. Okay. People have a lot of ability sometimes, or technical ability, velocity. I won't say just, technique has to do with more than just velocity, or I can play fast and I can get around my instrument. Your sound, the control of your sound, all of the nuances that you can create on your instrument. So you have a multitude of different things that fall under technique. So when people just say technique, they think velocity. So there are a lot of people that can get around their instruments and are very talented. There are many. However, what I noticed is there's a huge void in is their spirituality and the soul, and being able to tell a story in the human essence of what they're playing and the meaning of what they're playing. Now that's a fact. And you hear it in the music. So it's not like I'm just making it up. You can hear it in the music.
So like you say very, very frequently, you see a lot of young musicians they're too stuck in their head. Everything is too cerebral. They're not trying to convey emotion or tell a story or try to bring enough feeling into the music to really get across a story.
Correct.
Yeah. And
they don't know how to do it. It's a different requirement. It's like somebody that wants to play basketball. You want to go to the NBA or go to a Division I university or school, there's certain things you have to do well and consistently. You just have to, unless you're just big. Like normally, it's just, it's a sport for just, if you're 6'5" or taller and you're reasonably athletic, that's a huge requirement. But if you're not, let's say if you're under 6'5", you gotta have a lot of skills. Mm-hmm. That's just fact. I mean, check it out in the NBA. If you look at guys that are under 6'4" or whatever, I guarantee you that's where all your skill, a lot of skills are in that category. Or You definitely have to be able to shoot, and you definitely have to be able to handle the ball, and you definitely have to be able to pass. Now, there are probably less human beings that are over 6'5" or 6'6". So you just being big is a huge asset. You don't have to score. You might not have to do it. Maybe you have to be able to get rebounds or whatever. And big man, this is no slight on you all, whoever see this. It's just what it is. Mm-hmm. And so for music, if you rule out that you actually have to learn vocabulary, you can rule out having a lot of nuance in your playing. And let's say for improvised music or our ancestral music, if you rule out not having to play harmony and over changes and learn melody or whatever, then I mean, you're taking a lot of variables off the table. So that means your level of investment is much lower. And you could also say there's no one requiring that. So an audience is more about spectacle than it is about quality. You could play great individually. You could be the baddest cat. You could know all your vocabulary, not just flurries. You could know all of that stuff, and it's not required. So you don't get a gig, but you're not willing to take your shirt off, and you're not willing to put on paint, makeup, or whatever. And a guy far less talented or less invested or informed and with ability will get the gig because he's willing to do the spectacle thing as opposed to it being based on your actual ability and what you can do. So you have all of these things. So unpacking all of that stuff. So you have people focus on the cerebral, so just technical studies. You have a professional environment where there's no elder gatekeepers or elders that decide if this guy can play or not, who are battle tested and proven, who have careers and are legendary. Those people are just taken off the table. So there's no standard for what a professional is or your musicianship. Then if there's no standard, then all of the people in the education system, there's no standard for them either then. And that's not to say that all of them are bad, and I'm not going to say that or badmouth the program, but there's no standard. And in addition to that, there's not a lot of work. So you add all these variables, it's a very barren landscape. Mm-hmm. It's just what it is. It's barren. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, so in your last video, I believe it was See You at the Gig, it was based around spectacle culture. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you have been proactive over the years, highlighting many young musicians, trying to give them an experience playing in your band where they can grow and be taught by an elder. Along with that spectacle culture, I know that you've mentioned that there have been some young musicians that you have mentored that have gone over or have joined that culture, that spectacle culture. What do you see in their future?
Well, everything that I see now, to just back that up a little bit, I could never picture it. If you went back 15 years and you said this is what the jazz scene or the music scene is going to look like, I would be like, nah, no way. It's eroded that much. So all of those people that have gone into the spectacle culture landscape or have drifted from being serious about being a serious artist or musician or improviser or play with elders or lead bands have ventured into more popular music because they're just trying to eat. Mm-hmm. Or they think that's a better path to secure the bag. And it's always this thing of selling out. So you sell out things that are great. You can't tell me Art Blakey, Sarah Vaughan, Betty Carter, Benny Carter, Frank Foster, Frank West, Benny Golson, Buster Williams, who's still with us and alive, or Al Foster, who's still here. You can't tell me that their artistry and musicianship is not of the highest standard, and what's replacing it is not even close. So, like, how does that work? And they have way more skin in the game. So we just devalue, oh, that's old now. I think it's just a mentality, too, of people just thinking that because young people, it's this American young, like the young people are like ruling. It's like young people don't know anything yet. They're just out here. So it's like our friend Koji, who says, I was like, man, well, why are y'all playing the standard? Y'all not playing the melody. You're not playing the changes and whatever. He said, I guess it's like, let me imitate him. Like, yo, man, it's like, you know, you just take shit, you just throw it on the wall, and whatever sticks, you just see what sticks. Yeah. It's like shooting in the dark. So if society and culture and people are uneducated, so it's not that just people are uneducated, what are they marketed and promoted? And it's not that they even say, well, this person's good and this person's not, but who's saying this person is good or not? Publications, critics, what do they know? So going backwards, if you can't elevate those who are great, and that's not the standard, and you replace it with just whatever you want, and you reframe a whole narrative of what the music actually means, it's like the music means everything that it basically means nothing. If you can group everything under the moniker of jazz, then what does jazz actually mean then? It don't mean nothing. And so when people say jazz is dead, you can look at it on multiple levels. The name was dead in the first place because it's a name that's given by critics or people to codify black music or soulful and intellectual music. So it was derogatory in the first place. But over the years, all of these great artists, whether you want to call it, whatever you call it, it's of high quality and of a high level of investment and of skill, precision, and soul. Like James Brown, there you go. Basically blues-based music with a high level of soul, precision, groove, organization, and that's what it is. Put on some James Brown, and that's what you're going to get and feel. And that's a huge staple. That's like at the heart of what America is, or like that feeling. That's some unique American stuff right there. So
how can you learn that?
You have to be at the source. So how can you learn? The question is, how can you learn that, or what that feeling is, or what is that? You have to be around it. You're not going to learn it in a classroom. You could. You have a better chance learning it at a community gathering or at a venue after hours.
With a real master.
Yeah, with cats that do it, with people that are from it. Yeah. It's like passed down. Just like financial information or finance is passed down from family to young people. They don't necessarily learn it in school.
Right.
You learn it from people close to you, and they teach. Now, what you do with the information is what you do with it. But if you're not exposed to it and you don't have access to it, does it even matter? It don't matter. You know? So. Oh, yes. We got a master in the house. We have a master in the house. Yes, surprise. We got a surprise for y'all. You're going to pull that cap back. So I don't know if I answered your question initially.
No, definitely. One other thing, you mentioned a jazz scene. So I feel like whenever people talk about a certain scene in music, it's constantly, when it used to be this or it used to be that. And it goes in cycles. I feel like people are always like, well, this is dead, this is dead, this is dead. What's the biggest difference between maybe when you first moved to New York in, 93 you moved to New York?
Yeah.
Okay. So in 93, what was the overall vibe of the scene in New York? comparing it to what it would be like today?
The elders still had all of the weight. Like the biggest achievement you could get as a young musician is getting hired by an older cat's band. Any older cat.
Now it's almost the opposite, right?
Now it doesn't even matter, man.
Yeah.
Well, young people don't even look for old heads. I mean, even I could even think younger cats that had success would still be trying to hire old cats.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the case of Wynton Marsalis, or the record one of my favorite records, Marcus Roberts' Truth Is Spoken Here, he got old cats on the record. Charlie Rouse, Elvin Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, and all of the young cats, Nicholas Payton and his early records, the trend was younger guys coming up playing with older established musicians. Roy Hargrove, like all of these cats played their early records with older cats. Because that's what proved you. And it's the same with playing standards. How your proving ground is, can you play this standard? Do you know the lyrics of the tune? Can you play it with your own personality and vernacular, not sounding like someone else? Then it was the trend of, oh, well, he sounds like this guy, sign him because he was popular, and we want to do this because this is the marketing model we want to employ to make money. Because record labels are about business. Can we market you? Can we make money on you? It's not really about your artistry. But there was a standard of you being able to play. You had to be able to play. You couldn't just be like, I don't know how to play, or you be sad. So those are elements of the scene in the early 90s. And there's a hierarchy. Like anything, like there's levels to it. Hey, say, bro, don't you leave. Don't you get out of here. I'm gonna set you up. Hey, can we got another mic, or we can share?
Can you get the bass mics, okay? Or the pencil, or the piano?
Yeah. So.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Just you go get it. You go get it. This one?
Yeah.
I don't know. Ali, which mic?
Yeah, that one.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah. So all of the young cats, what they need to understand, like now, is playing with your friends. We always did that, but playing with the elders that's what we were aspiring to do, and playing on a certain level of musicianship, musicality, and learning from them. So there was never a time where we would be dissing old cats, and we would constantly be reaching out to them. You know, I spent a lot of time just chasing cats down. I'd have to chase down Marvin Smitty Smith, or chase down Billy Drummond, or go to their gigs. I'd be going to Kenny Washington's gigs. I would be going to Victor Lewis's gigs. I'd be up under Herlin Riley and just watching them, whether I had gigs or not. I was telling young cats the other day, I was working my gigs, but I would go by rehearsals where cats would be playing. When I had free time, and be like, oh man, so-and-so. I would sneak into Art Taylor's rehearsals at his apartment uptown. I would be sneaking in and be like, yo, can I just get in there? They'd be like, yeah, be quiet. Because I was hungry to get the information, and hungry for the musicians, and being in that environment, that love. It's like a family. Didn't matter if you white, black, green, purple, a woman or not. Maybe back then the whole thing with women is different, but still, if you want the information, you're going to be in that environment. You're just going to be in it. And those being able to determine whether you can play or not is not decided by a critic. It's decided by the elders, not critics. Unless the critic is somebody who can play, or is a BMF, or somebody that's bad. Then if it's a critic that knows something, then that's different. But where are they? That's what I'm saying. Where are they? So the structure of gigs has just changed. I mean, and then you got an economic component to it as well. So the economic component is real simple. Since there's no demand for high quality or high standards by an audience, club owners or presenters can put out whatever they want or they think is popular. And so you have a whole new crop of people with the understanding of, because you have followers or subscribers to your virtual self, that is actually has weight, but you could actually be completely sad and not be able to play.
Yeah. So we're already in the future of music venues. The pandemic has kind of like
thrusted
thrown us right into that. Do you have any specific plans for maybe creating your own venue, or do you have ideas of venues that might benefit musicians more?
I'm completely. So to answer that question, I have plans for both of those. To either have my own venue, virtual or physical, and I'm open to curating or being an advisor to someone who has a venue but need to upgrade the quality of what they present. Because people are always like, well, this is what people want and what they sell. Like, people don't know anything. Like, I've invested my lifetime into learning how to play music and playing my instrument. A lifetime. You think the average person has committed that much time into learning how to do that? It's like me going to tell a doctor, yeah, man, well, I think you should treat me like this or that or whatever. Now, I could say that, and that could be based on some information. But however, if this doctor has been practicing medicine for 25 years or 30 years, I mean, what am I going to really tell him? I mean, I'm an idiot. I can listen to him and then come to my own conclusion because it is my body. However, he has information that I have no clue of knowing. And music is similar to that. You can like what you like, but it's always based on what you're exposed to.
So besides getting musicians to play in your venue that you think represent the music correctly, how do you elevate just the overall experience of music and audience in your venue?
Well, for one, you could just employ a couple of things. First, whatever band comes, you just make the concerts themed.
Oh, okay.
You just theming a concert makes it more accessible, because now it's not good enough to just have a great performance, I feel. You have to educate your audience and give them a good performance, which is two things. So you can't just present music, because people won't know. It's not contextualized because they've not made an investment to know. And it doesn't mean that it has to be some deep investment. It just is like, oh man, I heard the music of cats of the 50s playing trumpet, or 60s, or cats of the 2000s.
Yeah.
It could be whatever. There's lots of different ways to frame a theme to bring people in, or to entertain and educate.
Education as well.
Edutainment.
They might go back and listen to those records that whoever the featured musician was played on, or check out their own work. Yeah.
And it's now. See, the thing is, the misconception around live music and improvised or ancestral music is that it's old. I was like, well, shit, basketball's old then. Soccer or American world football is old. People still play it, and billions of people still watch it. And the better it's played, there's a hierarchy of it. So why is it that now all of a sudden, oh, that's old? I was like, man, to do that requires a high level of skill, and it evokes a certain level of engagement and emotional response, and being fed emotionally when done well. And we just throw that out of the window. And see, that's my problem with it, because that's just a narrative. For me to get behind the drum kit and play like Max Roach, like, that's a hell of an achievement.
For sure, yeah.
Now, just like people say, if LeBron James grabs rebounds like Bill Russell, Like, that's a hell of an achievement. Just like, so, like, whatever you want to say. And then there's room for people to do something based on something else or to make improvement on it. But if you have no foundation and you just say you throw it under the bus and you just discount the level of artistic contributions by artists and you just throw that out of the window, then what are we talking about? It's like all bets are off.
Yeah.
So in programming these venues, it's great for young people to do their thing within a context, because you have to contextualize. Everything is in a context. So it just needs to be stewardship and mentorship. And that's all I'm saying. And it's lacking. Mm-hmm. And you need to prop up the old heads that are out scattered like Jedi Knights in the universe, like in hiding or something, or just trying to survive in a landscape that's not for them at all.
Right.
Guys shouldn't have to be busting the concrete to get gigs when they can play. They've had 20-year, 30-year careers playing.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this though, but
people in general.
Right.
It's like the old people have they have the wisdom. It's for us to take it and synthesize it and use that wisdom in a, how can I say, not necessarily in a new way, but to use it to improve our environment on all levels. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have old people that are older people or seasoned people that don't want to share the information, or they use the information to benefit themselves and not benefit the community or benefit a healthy ecosystem.
Do you fault them for that though?
Some of them, yeah. Or not mentoring those that they know have the ability or talent, and they have like an ego or their talent, or they feel threatened for whatever reason. Like, oh, this young guy's gonna knock me off,
yeah.
type of thing. As opposed to like, no, let me build you up to set you up to be successful. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I feel like hip hop music as a genre compared to jazz music has done a million times better job of that. And even if it's financially motivated,
right?
You know, Eminem gets on, you know, Dr. Dre is on. He puts Eminem on. Eminem blows up. Eminem puts D12 on, puts his people, they sign 50 Cent. 50 Cent gets on. 50 Cent puts on the next cats. It's like, so they've created their own ecosystem. In jazz music, it used to be that way. And that's the way it actually worked. You play in Art Blakey's in the Jazz Messengers.
He's setting you up.
He's setting you up to be successful.
Right.
First off, that was like an achievement. It's like you got to the Jazz Messengers, you made it to a certain degree. And then you could have a solo career after that, or you were respected. Betty Carter had many bands, and I'm kind of on the late side of that.
Yeah.
Where if you got in Betty Carter's band, it was like a training ground where you learn not only learn how to play, you learn about life, you learn about your identity, you learn some real like life skills mm-hmm. beyond music. And that sets you up to be successful in wherever you went. So first off, we have very little of that now. Very little.
I mean, we're trying to do it here.
Well, what we're doing here is the best we can do based on the environment and the landscape that we have. And so growing up in Detroit, you had a lot of masters in the music. Roy Brooks, Kenny Cox, Donald Walden, Marcus Belgrave, Teddy Harris, Ernie Rogers. Who else can I? And of course, and I'm going to say, the McKinneys, Harold McKinney, Ray McKinney. And these were all like different little schools inside of a big school.
Right.
And they all knew each other and they all respected everybody and everyone had a different variety and a different flavor. And then not to mention my father. So my father, Ali Muhammad Jackson Sr., if it were not for him, I mean, he was so far ahead of the curve. Like, so my musical education, I was playing chords when I was 5 years old. I could play you the cycle of fourths, fifths. I knew all of, my, basic harmony, major scales, minor scales, arpeggios, major chords, minor chords, dominant chords, augmented, diminished. I knew all of my harmony at like 5, 6 years old. And so I just learned this in this system. He called it the color wheel. So I learned all of this music theory in a system where it was very accessible. So for a kid, I could play all these chords, but in the beginning, I didn't know what they meant. But I could play them.
Gotcha.
And hear them.
Right, and hear them.
Yeah.
So then when somebody says, oh, this is what it is on paper, like you already know it. So you're just applying, you actually doing something now, you just attaching it to just a number and a letter.
So music education is backwards?
I won't say music education is backwards, but there are different ways that are just as effective. So then you're not tied into the way that we learn or the way that our brain is wired. So for me, like hearing harmony, hearing melodies, and my ability to hear music is just different. It's more organic, I would say. It's not so cerebral.
Yeah, we're getting back to the whole idea of the way you were taught theory. Seems like it was more based around feeling and emotion within the harmony, not so much like numbers and letters and all that.
Absolutely. I learned from hearing it,
Yeah.
as opposed to learning it as like, this is what this is on paper. And it's the same with improvisation. Scat solos. Can you scat? Like, that's the easiest way to just be involved, like to just be engaged and involved. Like, what do you hear? You hear the harmony, and what do you sing? Like, how do you respond to it? How do you make up your own melody or tell your own story based on this construct? So just like sports, or there's rules, right? But the greatest figure out how to either bend those rules or use the rules to serve them in a certain way, or the construct. And those are the people that are great, or they just do it better than others. And that's why we applaud them. And it's the same with musicians or artists or improvisers. They take those rules and they use them, and they basically defy the rules or do creative things around this. So if you have a form and a harmonic structure and whatever, and they can paint inside of this form and structure some elaborate and amazing things. And that's what makes us, definitely for the musician or people that really appreciate music on a more cerebral level. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
It's like you listen to Bird and he can touch you in your spirit and in your mind. And you could listen to Bessie Smith and she can do the same thing with way less, with how someone says a word, or Louis Armstrong. I'm using those older examples, but you could do it with people, today. Like when Herlin Riley plays a second line fill, or if he just plays a groove, it moves you. And he don't have to do nothing. He's just playing it. So music can touch people, and sometimes music can heal people if played well, if played with the right intention. So there you go.
Yeah, you mentioned Bessie Smith, like the way she would sing something, or the space that was used. Can you talk a little bit about the importance and really like how space affects the music?
Well, if you don't have space, you don't have music. Space is required. I can remember who I was speaking to about this. But they had a musical, we looked at a score. We're looking at scores and studying scores. And the one thing that you'll notice with any score, and this is on paper, so for people that aren't musicians, a score, let's say if it's for an orchestra, you might have like 50 lines, 50 parts. And each one of those lines represents a musician or an instrument or a musician playing that instrument. And you'll never notice that everyone is playing all at the same time. It's very rare. And if everyone is playing all at the same time, it's for a short amount of time that everyone's playing at this very same time. So most of the music is full of space or rest. It's mostly space. It's not notes. So the greatest musicians and performers know how to use space. Because it's actually, part of it is what you play, but it's actually when you play it in the space around what you play. And I think we're just so caught up with just information. There's some youngins out here playing today, and I love them. I'll keep them nameless. I love them on a human level, and they're fantastic musicians. But the choices that they make and the things that they choose to do, it's like, what are we doing? Yeah. So anyway, that's it. I don't know. I'm a little frustrated with. I'm a little frustrated with why people choose what they do, but it's all leadership and guidance. Yeah. Guidance. And being open to being guided. Like I don't have all the answers. I know I don't. And I have a lot more to learn. And I have hopefully a lot more life to live. So I just know to improve, there's certain things that are like non-negotiables. Musically, that is. And in life. So those are the things that we need to really look at, and what has been successful and what has not been successful. But always everything is around marketing and how can we market something new that's not new. It's like a game. We market you something new, but it's not. Doesn't matter whether it's good or not. Oh, this is great. Why? Because the packaging looks shiny and cool. And then when you start to expose like it is not, then you're the bad guy because you're not with the go along, get along gang. Your artistry should speak on its own. It doesn't need to be like, oh, well, you have to this, that, and the other thing, and you put a bunch of air around it. But it's like, well, what is it? Anyway, I could go on and on. I don't know if y'all really want me to go in. I think y'all don't really want me to go in. The go along, get along game. It's in every sector of society. Politics, finance, religion. That's the first probably go along, get along gang. Religion. Oh, you're not this? Oh, well, what kind of human is this person? Oh, it doesn't matter. You either with us or you against us. Go along, get along gang, volume 1. Version 1. And musically, there's always been scenes of certain cats that do certain things, like the hard boppers in the early 90s. Like it was like certain cats, that's what they wanted to do. Then you had like the Knitting Factory cats that played more. I'm just using the label avant-garde, but I don't call it that. I call it more, actually that music's more organized than it is free. But textural and more expressive in a different way. Then you had, the cats that played in big bands, and you had cats that played. You had the wedding circuit. You had lots of different circuits in sectors. You had cats that had their own music, that performed their own music, and band leaders that had a concept. So ultimately, for jazz musicians and artists and throughout history, cats used the construct, like the connectivity, and learned or refined their concepts. But the synergy of all of it is generally always some grooving happening, and it's always interactive, and they always some vocabulary and language, musical language, that is, for those that don't know what that means. And so what is musical language? For lack of a better word or explanation, your ability to spontaneously create cohesive melodies based on whatever the platform you're playing on that speak to you. A melody could be one long ass note, but it could be a lot of emotion in that one long note. It could be it could start loud and get soft and get louder. It could have vibrato. It could have a growl in it. It could have air around. It's like a lot of things you could do with one note. So one note could be extremely expressive.
Yeah, I remember. I think you were the first person to explain to me the rhythm in the end of a note.
Yeah, the cutoffs.
The cutoffs, like the rhythm and the cutoff, and how effective that is if you use it right.
Absolutely. That's just as important as the attack.
Yeah.
If people don't think about it. Mm-hmm. Or like knowing if you play a cymbal that has a long decay or sustain, is knowing if you play it at a certain volume, how long that decay or that sustain is going to be. So you, like in quote unquote swinging on the ride cymbal, is repetition of you playing notes in a short amount of space between the two. But that cymbal continues to resonate, and you reactivate that resonation every time you strike the cymbal. So understanding that, and understanding whatever the particular cymbal you're playing, is knowing what volume and how you strike the cymbal to create that sustain to be at whatever dynamic you choose for it to be in, and how that interacts with the rest of the ensemble you play with. That's very scientific, but it's true. It's fact. And are you aware of it? Are you paying attention to it? But those are nuances that are relevant to, making good music. And if you're invested, your level of investment. Yeah, so I don't know. We taking a break, or what are we doing? I don't know. Are we going to ride out to the jam session?
Well, that's where I hear all the people went. That's what I've heard. It's local jam session.
Yeah, so cats at the jam session.
How is your session different from other sessions?
Well, I have a very specific standard on people playing cohesive solos. This is more like a class than it is just a jam session. But if you want to talk about me leading a jam session in general, like a regular jam session, how we do it here, this is about improvement. And if you play a sad solo, I'm going to tell you played a sad solo, and I'll tell you why it was sad. That's actually cheating. I shouldn't tell you why. You should be able to figure out why it was sad for yourself. And so the next time that you play, you're more mindful about what you choose to play or don't play. Sometimes it's not about what you play, it's about what you don't play. And
the music we play.
Yeah, we play an assortment of music. Sometimes they're standards. Sometimes they're obscure tunes. Sometimes they're original compositions. But there's always a message or a reason why we play whatever those tunes are. Generally, it could be based around the interaction or the interplay between the rhythm section. It could be around a very simple melody and how you could play that melody lots of different ways. It could be based around the interaction between how everyone plays, like why they play, the level of listening of the soloist in the rhythm section or his accompaniment. There's lots of different reasons why we play different tunes.
Do people think like that at sessions most of the time?
Should I repeat that so people hear?
No, I'm asking. Oh yeah.
The question is, do people play like that at sessions most of the time? And the answer is, hell no. They don't. Because they're not informed. Now, I can't speak for every session because I'm not at every session in the world. From my experience and in my opinion, no, they don't. So there you go. And it's because lack of higher quality leadership and those that run these sessions.
Does it help the musicians get better playing like that?
Does it help the musicians to get better by just not having a higher standard? No, it does not. Definitely for younger musicians or older musicians. Just depends on your level.
One question. What is the jazz in the barn?
Jazz in the barn.
Mr. Enriquez asked.
Welcome to the barn. Jazz in the barn. I think that's where the animals solo and play. Like chickens, cows, pigs, walruses. I think they do that.
Mikey's here too.
Yeah. El Tipo, the great Mike Rodriguez, and the master of jazz at the barn, or jazz in the barn, Mr. Carlito Enriquez, jazz, and 10 more Z's. Yeah, I guess they put all those extra Z's on jazz because everybody started falling asleep on it. That's why they named it. No, I'm just don't know. I don't know.
What was the last time you went to a jam session? Or what was your experience like?
My experience at a jam session, it was so painful I had to leave. I want to throw venues under the bus, but it was a venue that I was like, man, what is this? It was almost like when they had the bad contestants on American Idol. I was like, man, they might as well just do that. Or people could start doing aerobics and play their instruments and do like dance routines. Like, I mean, because it's not about music at that point.
Yeah, that's hot now, though. Those
And
aerobic routines.
With somebody playing their instrument?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's trending?
Yeah.
That's trending?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's become a spectacle. It's not about playing. I mean, Mike Rodriguez and his brother, Rob Rodriguez, so they come from a different music tradition. And so for those brothers, you know, they learned Afro, Latin for a better word, but Afro-Latin culture, traditional music. And they applied it with their musical experiences. And they created the sound that they play with. But it's like two languages. And it's the same with Carlos Enriquez. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time playing with him over the years. But the thing is, they speak these two languages and they can express themselves in these languages, musically speaking. And
he said, Afro jazz, bruh.
well, jazz is dead. So there's no jazz. They killed, that name was dead before it even got started. So Afro people that were taken over by the conquistadors, and whatever, put it however you want. Afro jazz, yeah.
Why are we doing a podcast today?
We're doing this podcast today because the youngins that were so-called serious about learning and getting more insight about the music decided to not do this and go to a jam session and practice possibly ignorant musical behavior.
That's good.
That's it.
You want to play a little bit and then we close?
Yeah, but how about I just rap and beatbox and then grab my genitalia and all of that kind of stuff and to keep it trending.
Well, then you're a genius.
Oh yeah, can I get a genius award for that? Be like, yo, son, this is new scat, and yo, I just rap scat like shoop doo ba dee ba dee bop, shoop bop boo ba dee boo bop bop boo doo. Yo, hit me up, yo. Boop boop ba dee ba dee da, shoop dee ba dee da, doo dee doo da.
Well, let's not get too hip.
Shooby Taylor, son, yo, I'm having fun with Shooby Taylor, yo. What? You don't know? Boop 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 beep dop. Whatever, bro. We'll see you at the gig.
Check out the YouTube channel.
Check out the YouTube channel, Ollie Jackson. See you at the gig, bout it, and on the record. Holla at